Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Make a Move Mike, also known as Michael Harris of Realty Executives Dealing. I'm here with Andy Cruz of Mortgage Heroes today, and we're going to be discussing 5 tips for a successful relationship with a realtor and a lender. So tip number 1, be honest. That goes for both sellers as well as buyers. Now, for sellers, and buyers, again, you want to disclose everything. Disclose. I cannot repeat that enough. And that's where you got liens, repairs that you know about, and may come up later and may be an issue later when the buyers do their home inspection. Buyers, you want to disclose everything if you think there might be some issues with a judgment if you have one, or whatever the case may be. We want to disclose everything that we know so we can tackle it ahead of time versus it being discovered late in the transaction and then potentially delaying the transaction, and even worse, getting the transaction to not close. So remember, the idea here is to close, but you got to disclose
Yep.
to make sure we know everything here.
Yeah, basically no faking it till you make it.
Exactly.
No fake it till you make it. If you fake it, you'll break it.
Yeah.
And the thing when it comes to the financing part is like, look, the process is built to vet everything. So the sooner you come out with, hey, this might be an issue, or this thing over here is a problem, or even asking questions, hey, this is going on in my financial life, is this a problem? Like, just be honest about it.
Yeah.
The process is going to snuff it out anyways.
Right.
But if you can get honest right away, there's a better chance that we can actually do what we're supposed to do, or what you're asking us to help you do in the market.
Agree. And the reason for that is sometimes people think they're doing themselves justice by not disclosing, by hiding things, or they're actually doing themselves a disservice because someone finds out sooner or later during the transaction.
Yep.
And again, it either delays it or it gets the transaction canceled. So tip number 2, communicate. I always recommend over communicating instead of not communicating at all. And the reason for that is because you want to make sure you got everything out there on the table. There's clarity. There's no ambiguous situation where you're wondering like what's going on or what's my agent or lender doing next. Just reach out to them or me and Andy and Mortgage Heroes, and we'll clarify everything and make sure that you have a good sense of what's going on and update of the status of your transaction. And you can do that by setting expectations.
Yeah, expectations are a big part of this, actually. Many years ago, I learned relationally, unspoken expectations go unmet. That is so true in real estate transactions and mortgage transactions as well. If you have expectations that aren't clearly communicated to us, it's likely they're going to go unmet because we're not mind readers. Right. At the same time, we have expectations of buyers, and we have expectations of sellers and people even that are doing refinance. Like my expectation is that you'll give me the paperwork that we need so we can actually process your loan. Right. That's a fair expectation. But we got to communicate these things because we're working together for the outcome. Mike and I have talked about this before. Like, none of us professionals in the industry win anything until after you've already won. So you winning means we get something after that. And setting expectations is part of that, and them being clear and them being realistic. If there's something that we can't do, we have to tell you we can't do it. And if you're being unrealistic, we got to tell you, hey, that's a little bit unrealistic, but here's why. And not from a place of fear, but of actual market perspective and sense. Like, hey, if you're telling me you're trying to sell your $500,000 house for $4 million, like, let's have some clear expectations, but let's be realistic in the process as well.
Right, and clarity is key because we like to know what you want and what you need and a timeline for obtaining those things. Yeah, that allows us, like Andy mentioned, if we can get you that in that time frame, if provided it's realistic, and then if it's not, then we'll let you know, a more realistic time frame, or if what you're asking is realistic, point blank. So tip number 3, commitment. You got to be committed. Ourselves as industry professionals, we're 100% committed to you. Yeah. So we would like you to reciprocate that in return, and don't be a time suck. Don't be someone that just wants to be a window shopper, just wants to utilize an agent or a lender just to, inquiry only, and you have no intentions on moving forward.
Yeah. That ultimately doesn't help them. No. Doesn't help the consumer to do that.
Right. And So if you have some just basic questions you want to ask and you're not quite ready, then just be, as I mentioned, tip number one, be honest up front and let us know that. And then maybe we can schedule a buyer consultation or a seller a consultation, and discuss some things that you want to do in order to prepare for buying or selling in the future.
Right.
And then we will just kind of consult and guide you along the way. But we always want to make sure that you're absolutely 100% committed to us, as we are 100% committed to you.
Yeah.
So,
and that has to do, I mean, for us in the lending side, it has to do with like, we'll say looky-loos, like, kicking the tires, like, let's see what they say over here. And then I'm gonna go over here. And it's you're not buying a car. Right. You're not gonna go to this dealership and then go take that deal over there. Like, that's not how banking really works. Right. If someone's gonna take a haircut over there at Bank XYZ, that doesn't mean I'm gonna take a haircut over here. It doesn't even mean I can. So like some things that the buyers or people refinancing sometimes expect to be able, they're not equatable. Going and shopping for a car and wheeling and dealing, that's not how this works. Right. So and it's not because people can't shop around, but what happens that I've seen from the past is when people shop around, they end up getting sold to and they get over-promised things, and then those things don't happen, and then guess what happens? They come right back, and then we tell them the same thing we said the first time, honestly, with clear expectations up front, and then we have to do the transaction the way we said we would the first time, before all that chaos and silliness happen. So avoid the silly, and let's just get right down to work.
Right. And then get a level of service that you need. So tip number 4, be ready to act. You want to make sure your finances in place and that you are ready to purchase or you are ready to sell. And one way of doing that is speaking with the mortgage lender. If you're buying, they'll be able to assess your credit history, your income history, your debt history, and anything else that can come up that may potentially affect you financially qualifying for a mortgage. Yeah. Another thing about being ready to act, you got to be ready to act when you find that home. I've had situations where I found the buyer a home that met all of their criteria: size, square footage, number of bedrooms and bath, location, aesthetics, you name it. And then they hesitate and wait a day to, submit an offer, and then buyers XYZ place an offer on that home that same afternoon. Right. Now that buyer that I'm working with has potentially lost out on an opportunity on a home that they know that they would love living in, or at worst, or in another situation, they may have to compete with that buyer. Right. And whereas if they had acted faster, they wouldn't have to compete with that buyer at all, and they would be moving into escrow on a home that they like, a home that has everything that they want and is in the neighborhood that they want, and they can move forward and be happy with that decision.
And you know what's funny about this particular point is, like, being ready, there's nothing sexy about that. Yeah. Like, it's such a mechanical part of the process, but like, it's not glamorous. It's not on, like, we watch HGTV, like, oh, this and that, everything's all exciting and it's beautiful and da-da-da. But you're like being ready to act and like being committed to the process, like full commit, it makes the difference. You don't want to be looking at this situation like Mike's talking about from the rearview mirror, wondering, oh, well, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, like that. And I'm kind of saying it that way with a little bit of like, because it's so frustrating when someone is ready and they just hesitate for a second and then they miss out, and then we got to go at it again. But we're going at it again after we've already taken a couple on the chin. Yes. And this is for most people, this is their largest purchase transaction. Yeah. It's the largest monthly payment that they're going to make when they take out a mortgage. It's their largest tax deduction when they're when they're taking off that mortgage interest on the taxes every year. So like let's be serious about it. Like, yes, it can be fun and it can be exciting, but there's parts that like actually really, really matter that are just mechanical in function, and being ready to act is one of those things. It may not be glamorous, it may not be pizzazzy, but man, is it really important.
Yes. And being ready to act, that also applies to sellers as well, because as a seller, if you're not ready to act when the market is at its peak, and once that peak is passed, you're going to potentially leave money on the table. So that's something you want to consider as well. So just think about it. Tip number 5, get a good referral. Ask friends and families for referrals of agents as well as lenders that they've worked with and their experience with that agent or lender, because they'll be happy to do you refer that agent or a lender because they've had a good experience with them.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah,
Well.
this one actually goes a long way. It strikes a chord with me specifically. I mean, this goes a long way. 100% of the time that we get referred, it's because of two reasons, or one of these two reasons. The first one is someone had a great experience that they want someone else they love and care about to have as well. Right. So they want a repeated result in the life of someone who's in their inner circle that they care about. Mm-hmm. The other reason is we helped resolve someone's problem, and they've now told someone else, hey, these guys over here can solve that problem for you too. Here's how they solved it for me. Mm-hmm. Those two things are 100% of the reason why we get referred. And you notice I didn't mention marketing or advertising or anything else. It's when it comes down to being referred, it's about the ability to do what you were already trusted to do in the life of somebody else with success. Right. And that matters so big because a lot of times you can get referred to somebody, but then you're also getting marketed by somebody else. Yes. And people can fall into the marketing. And this kind of dovetails with that whole shop around thing too. Yeah. It's like, man, marketing can make you some amazing promises. They can make it seem like everything's just going to be wonderful. But if we're being honest and we're communicating and we're getting into the dirt, everything, man, it can be messy sometimes. Yeah. And that's when you need that good referral partner there, because if someone who you care about is telling you to come here, it's because they care about you, and we've already done the messy part before with someone who you already trust. So that really strikes a chord with me because this happens all the time. Right. And in another video, Mike and I talked about how bad information about the VA loan gets passed from person to person to person to person unintentionally, just because we share information. But when something good happens, man, it's almost more important that we share that good, because people are or I'd say much quicker to share bad information than maybe positive information. It just seems to be something about the nature of things right now. Right. But man, I'd love to turn that around where when someone refers you, it's like, man, I have trust and assurance and the credibility of the person I'm being referred to. And that's why we do this. That's why it's him and me on this show, because we have credibility, track record, and work history together, and we refer each other. So we're already an example of this at work in the marketplace. Right,
and you mentioned it can get a little messy. One of the things I don't suggest you, consider a referral, if you will, if it's based on a name of a brokerage or a company alone, because just to give you an example, you have plenty of companies out there, i.e. McDonald's, Starbucks, let's say Red Lobster, you name it. If you go to each of those restaurants or businesses, you get a different level of service generally from each one, and you can notice that as a consumer. Yep. So what we're talking about is getting a referral based off someone's experience with that individual or that company. Yep. So the brokerage alone, I kind of caution people at doing that, because you do get a different experience, going from broker, because that referral may be coming from someone who's on the East Coast and they got a great experience over there, but you come over here locally and the experience is not the same. Yeah. It's not that it's bad, but it's not quite the same.
It could be different.
Yeah, it can be different.
Even though the brand is the same, the experience localized could be different.
So you get your experience based on the individual within that. So even though a company may be small, I've known plenty of mom and pop brokerages, lenders, and my peers at other brokerages. They do great jobs as individuals, as great as anyone can do, no matter where they are in the country. So please take that into consideration, as well as the relationship that you can build with that person when you get your referral. So thank everyone for being with us today while we discussed the 5 tips for having a successful relationship with a realtor and a lender. We're happy to have you here today. If you have any questions or concerns about what we've talked about today, or any questions or concerns about what we haven't talked about, please comment below or direct message us, or you can contact us via email, phone, or text. We'd be happy to provide a great service to you and answer any of your questions. With that being said, hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care, everyone.